Okay, Assalamualaikum to Mr. Muhammad Fadzil bin Hamid. My name is Muhammad ZULHAFIZ Bisnu, and today I'll be presenting OSH2543 Machinery and Equipment Safety on accidents involving the use of cranes. First of all, let me tell you that I have prepared this slide just to make the presentation easier and clearer for you. As for the full report, I will be sending it to you through email, which also includes the SOP of working with cranes. Alright, so first of all, the introduction is what is crane? Crane is a heavy machinery used to carry or lift materials, most commonly used in construction sites. So in most construction sites, cranes are usually the biggest machinery piece of equipment that they use. So being a big equipment and machinery, it has a lot of hazards and potential accidents that can occur from operating it. So there are a few types of cranes commonly used today. Some of the examples that I'm going to give today is mobile crane and gantry crane. Mobile crane will be cranes that can be moved by it's usually on the back of a truck with wheels, or truck that uses a chain to move. So these are the example of mobile crane and the gantry crane that is most commonly used in Malaysia especially. Okay, so here are the factors for some common causes of crane accidents. So there are a few common causes of crane accidents in the industry. One of the common ones are overturning. So overturning is when the crane tips over due to excessive overload. Example, when you carry loads that are too heavy and the counterweight of the crane cannot counter back the weight of the materials that are being lifted. So the common factors are actually overloading. And then another example, another factor of the cause of the accident is due to the unstable or uncompacted surface. For example, in construction sites, when the land is not yet properly dumped, so you will see slopes or potholes, or sometimes even uncovered manholes. So this may cause the mobile crane to be unstable at the workplace. So this may cause the crane to tip over or overturn. And then another example is mechanical failure. For this is due to poor maintenance of the crane. Mechanical failure, we can categorize things such as when the beam of the crane is extended too far from the crane itself. This may cause the crane to lose balance. And another example would be the outrigger of the crane. So every crane has an outrigger to balance the whole truck. So if the outrigger is not properly maintained, it may cause the truck to lose balance because it has no support of it has no ground support to support the weight of the materials being carried. And then another cause of another factor of the overturning accident is usually management and planning failure. So example of management and planning failure is when your crane operator is not properly trained or is incompetent. So he might not know what he's doing when he carry loads. And then another factor is poor load planning. So from the management team, we're supposed to hire someone who can properly plan the load that is being carried. Make sure that the load is within the limit of the safe working load, or the working load limit that is given by the manufacturer of the crane. So the crane can only carry a certain number of weight, and it is usually balanced out by the counterweight on the body of the crane. So the poor planning of this may lead to accident. Okay, the next factor is collision. Collision is usually happen when the crane working radius is not cleared properly. So when there's obstruction, when the crane is being moved around, this obstruction will collide with the crane, and sometimes even the materials being carried. So the factor is because due to crane radius is not cleared, and then another factor that may cause this is miscommunication from the signalman. So it is required that every crane and lifting work must be assisted by a signalman on the ground. So the signalman must make sure that there are no obstructions, make sure that everything is clear, and as a signalman, he must communicate with the crane operator, either by verbal, by using a two-way radio communication or walkie-talkie, or he can also use hand signals to make sure that there's no obstruction in the working radius of the crane. And then of course collision is also caused by overloading of crane capacity. For example, they are carrying too much and lose balance. When the crane lose balance, it may also collide with structures of the building or any other objects which is within the radius of the crane. Okay, the next factor is loss of load. Loss of load is basically when the materials or the objects being carried is dropped or is falling from the rig and the bracing during lifting. So this factor is actually caused by improper installation of rig. It is required that every materials being carried or being hoisted from anywhere when you move it, the materials must be properly rigged and properly braced or tied down so that the object doesn't move around. So in another factor is overloading. Overloading basically in this case, overloading basically means you are loading materials more than the rig can withstand. So if you are carrying too heavy and your rig cannot withstand the weight of the material, it can snap and it can drop all your load down to the ground. So again, and then besides overloading, the rig must also be checked properly. So any stretch or bend links can cause accidents as well, can cause the loss of load. Stretch or bend links must not be used if as a crane operator and whoever is working there. So if you notice that the links are stretched or bent, you must not use that link anymore. So same goes with the slings that are used. Slings, if the slings is damaged, you can no longer use, and it must be replaced with a new one. And okay, the next one is operator's error. So operator's error is actually one of the biggest factor of crane accidents. This is a study made by Occupational Safety and Health Administration of America. So some factors that these are some of the factors that operators error that cause accidents. So one of it is operator is not competent. So if the operator did not undergo proper training and acquire proper competency to operate the crane, they may not know how to properly operate the crane. For example, they don't know how to properly lift the material. They don't know how to move the crane about properly. So this may cause accidents to occur. Next is miscommunication. This goes back to the signalman that I mentioned earlier. So any miscommunication in a workplace can cause a lot of catastrophe and accident, or sometimes even can even lead to fatality. So miscommunication between the crane operator and the signalman is very very important. Operator must always be alert to the signalman's sign or any instructions that are given by the signalman. So you cannot take the risk of uh, being reluctant to listen to the signalman. And then the last one is operator did not check the area clearance of the crane. So as a crane operator, you cannot just rely on signalman 100%. You must also do your own checking before moving any objects around. So you have to make sure your surrounding area, your turning radius is always clear of any obstruction. Alright, these are some control measures to reduce the accident probability. So for overturning, you have to make sure the crane is not carrying more than the capacity can carry and more than the counterweight on the body of the crane. So every crane has its own counterweight, which is to counter the weight of the objects being carried. So you must not exceed the given weight limit from the manufacturer. So every crane has its own limit, and you have to follow the limit. And then you have to ensure that the floor surface where the crane is placed is flat and even, and avoid parking the crane on any slopes or potholes or anything that can make the crane lose balance. And then cranes are to be regularly checked and serviced accordingly, especially the outrigger of the crane. So outrigger is very important because this helps the crane to balance and support when the crane is lifting materials. Okay, for control measures for collision, we have to make sure that we have to follow the radius chart of the crane. So radius chart is usually given by the manufacturer, where we can see how far the radius can go accordingly to the weight that you are carrying. So for example, the longer you extend the crane, you have to reduce the weight being carried. So follow the radius chart, because the radius chart will tell you if your crane is extending too far, and this will basically avoid from any collision. And also always stay alert to the signalman's instruction. Use two-way radio communication to get a better and clearer communication between the crane operator and the signalman. So as you know, sometimes hand signals can be quite blurry or confusing. So the best way is always use two-way radio or walkie-talkie. Alright, for the loss of load, we have to make sure that the rigs, bracing, or any sort of rigging used are checked and secured safely before lifting anything. This should be done by a certified and trained rigger or dogger. So anything that is being carried is supposed to be properly rigged and put bracing on it, so that the objects does not fall. And then we have to ensure that the loads being put are balanced to avoid loss of balance when moving and hoisting. For example, when you carry brick, you can't carry brick that is heavy on one side. So this may cause imbalance, and this may cause the material to fall down. And of course, do not overload the crane load capacity, as it may snap the rig or the wire. So every rig itself, not just the crane, the rig itself has its own weight limit as well. So we must not exceed the weight limit that is given by the manufacturer, because every rig has its own safe working limit. So we have to follow the safe working limit in order for us to properly make things work. Okay, and then the last one is operator's error. Operator's error is basically human error. So we have to make sure that the person operating the crane is competent and has experience in operating cranes. So competent means the crane operator must undergo a certain type of training and approved by the authority. Okay, and then we have to make sure the crane operator is fit to work, to make sure he stays focused at all times. So the crane operator must be healthy and he is fit to work, because he will be getting signals from the signalman or anyone on the ground. So if he can't stay alert, can't stay alert with the instructions given by workers on the ground, this may lead to accidents. Alright, next, these are the types of appropriate training to be given to crane operators. So first of all, for the crane operators, qualified and competent person training for crane operators. All crane operators should be sent for crane operating course, and they are to obtain the proper certificate from approved training providers such as Academy Binaan Malaysia. So they provide crane operator training, which is a training that you have to undergo in order to understand how to operate a crane safely and properly. So a certified crane operator are also known as orang yang competent, and they are approved by the Department of Safety and Health Malaysia. Okay, next, for a person who does the rigging, slinging and signaling, they will have their own training as well. So workers who work on ground should be given proper rigging and slinging training to ensure they know how to properly rig the materials that are being hoisted at the workplace. They will also be trained on how to balance the weight of the load according to the safe working load and working load limit. So this kind of courses are actually provided by quite a lot of training providers here in Malaysia. One of the examples would be also Academy Binaan Malaysia, and a few other training centers that are available. And then lastly, the signaling training. So the signalmen on the ground, they have to attend a certain training as well, but they don't have to acquire any license for anything. It's enough for them to undergo the training. So this training will teach them on how to give hand signals and how to properly communicate with the crane operator, as they will be quite far from the crane operator. So they have to know how to give proper signals to the crane operator to avoid any accidents. Alright, thank you so much. That is all from me. So the standard operating procedure will be in my full report that will be submitted to you, sir. Thank you so much.